On the night of May 31, 2009, Rio de Janeiro was wrapped in a blanket of tropical rain. In the distance, thunder rolled over the Atlantic. At Gate 42, Air France Flight 447 prepared for its overnight journey to Paris. A sleek Airbus A330, carrying 216 passengers and 12 crew, stood gleaming under the ramp lights, its blue tail fin reflecting on the wet tarmac. The cockpit lights glowed softly. Captain Marc Dubois, with decades of flying behind him, checked the flight plan. Two younger co-pilots, David Robert and Pierre A330, copyright Drick Bonin, ran through the checklists. Routine words filled the air: hydraulic pressure, navigation alignment, takeoff speeds. Outside, rain whispered on the windows. At 10:29 p.m., the engines spooled to life. The aircraft rolled down runway 10R and climbed into the dark sky, leaving behind the lights of Rio's coastline. Within minutes, the city vanished. Only the reflection of lightning flickered across the clouds. Passengers settled in. The cabin lights dimmed, and the hum of the A330 became the rhythm of the night. 2 hours later, the flight crossed the Brazilian coastline, entering the immense void of the Atlantic Ocean. There would be no radar coverage for the next few hours, only position reports sent automatically by the aircraft's systems. Inside the cockpit, the mood was relaxed. The captain left for a scheduled rest, leaving Bonin in the left seat and Robert in the right. The airplane climbed smoothly to 35,000 feet. Ahead, a wall of towering clouds waited, a part of the intertropical convergence zone, where warm air from both hemispheres collides to create violent storms. The pilots studied the weather radar, adjusting course slightly to the left to avoid the worst of it. They switched on the anti-ice systems as small vibrations signaled the presence of ice crystals. Minutes passed. Rain became heavier. The cockpit lights flickered from distant lightning. Then, quietly, something changed. The speed readings are taken from 3 tiny tubes on the outside of the aircraft began to disagree. Ice had started to block them. In the dark, the air data computers couldn't decide which numbers were correct. The autopilot clicked off with a chime. Pierre A330, copyright Drick Bonin, took manual control. The sudden change startled both pilots. Without the autopilot, the airplane required steady hands. The flight director symbols vanished from the screens. Bonin pulled slightly on the side stick, climbing gently to keep the altitude. But the unreliable speeds caused another warning, a stall alarm. Control or alternate, Robert called out, to a reminder that some protections were lost. The stall alarm sounded again. Stall, stall. Confusion filled the cockpit. In training, this scenario was rarer. Autopilot off, at night, in turbulence, with frozen sensors. Bonin pulled back further, thinking the plane was descending too quickly. The nose pitched up, the engines roared. Outside, there was no horizon, only blackness. The aircraft climbed sharply from 35,000 to 38,000 feet, losing speed fast. The stall alarm blared. In the cabin, a few passengers stirred, unaware of the chain of small errors building in the cockpit. Robert urged, "Descend a broken bar." "No, you're climbing," Bonin answered, "but I'm at Toga, full thrust." The airplane's nose was too high, the wings were losing lift. Seconds later, the stall warning stopped, not because the danger passed, but because the sensors no longer measured enough airflow to trigger it. The aircraft was now falling. The captain returned, rushing into the cockpit. "What's happening?" he asked. The altimeter was spinning downward. The airplane, at 38,000 feet, was dropping through the clouds in a deep aerodynamic stall. Yet the engines kept producing power, and the pilots couldn't feel the descent clearly. For the next 3.5 minutes, the crew struggled to understand what they were seeing. Pitch, roll, and speed indications changed rapidly. Every time the stall alarm reappeared, instinct told them to pull up, but that only made it worse. The vertical speed indicator showed thousands of feet per minute of descent. The captain tried to regain order. "Level the wings, a broken bar. We're going down a broken bar. Pull gently." No, nose down, a little broken bar, but the situation had passed the point of recognition. The cockpit voice recorder captured calm yet tense exchanges, moments of disbelief, then silence between commands. At 2:14 a.m. automated messages began transmitting from the aircraft. Failures of flight control systems, air data computers, pressurization. Ground control in Paris received the series but could not raise the crew on radio. Over the ocean, storm clouds swallowed all signal. Within minutes, the aircraft descended through the final layer of cloud. There were no lights, no reference, only the sea reflecting flashes of lightning. The plane impacted the Atlantic surface at high vertical speed. The ocean closed above it, leaving only faint traces of fuel and floating debris. When Flight 447 failed to check in with Dakar control, search operations began at dawn. Days turned into weeks. Ships found small fragments of seat cushions, a galley panel, pieces of the tail feeder, but no sign of the main wreckage. Families waited in airports, holding on to hope that faded with every passing hour. It took 2 years before remotely operated vehicles discovered the fuselage, nearly 400 meters below the surface. Inside, investigators recovered the black boxes intact despite the pressure. What they revealed reshaped aviation training worldwide. The recorders showed that a minor sensorizing event had cascaded into total loss of control, fueled by confusion and lack of reliable data. The crew never realized the airplane was stalled. They fought a problem they misunderstood, in darkness, without visual cues. It was not incompetency, it was human vulnerability inside complex automation. The investigation led to redesigns of pitot tubes, new procedures for unreliable airspeed, and deeper emphasis on manual flying skills. Flight simulators began to replicate high-altitude stalls more accurately. Today, every commercial pilot learns the lessons of Air France 447. They know how fragile the link can be between man and machine, and how quickly misunderstanding can grow inside the quiet hum of the cockpit. In aviation, each accident leaves behind not only sorrow but knowledge. The story of Flight 447 reminds us that safety is written in lessons paid for dearly. Behind every checklist, every alarm, every warning light, there are echoes of those who were lost, guiding the hands that fly today.